a lot when we do these. This is our, I think, 18th city, something like that. I've lost track. Is a lot of people always ask us, so why are you guys doing this? You know, why is it these 4 vendors and not 4 other vendors? And basically, as you can see, we probably put this slide together to try to make some sense of it for everybody. Why the 4 of us? So really, we're here as 4 tools vendors to present to you guys what we think is the best of breed solutions to fulfill the whole Agile methodology. Yes, sir?
Are the slides available later?
Sure. Easy. We will actually send emails out to everybody who registered, and if you'd like the slides, just respond and we'll send them to you. We'll have everybody's day, okay? But as I was saying, so this is basically just our attempt to sort of visually show you how we all work together and enable the entire Agile life cycle. So that's about us and why we're here, and we thought after doing this a number of times, sometimes it helps to find out why you guys are here. So, your first poll. This keeps you awake. So, are you Agile today? And here are the choices. So, A, no Agile, no plans. B, no Agile but planning. C, some Agile. D, scaling Agile. And E, mostly Agile. Thank you, Todd, for doing this slide, by the way. So we're going to do show of hands, right? Let's keep everybody alert. A. Good, because you shouldn't be here. Okay. B. All right. Two. All right. C. Some Agile. All right. There you go. That's good. D. Nice. How about E? All right. The experts. Katya, you're not allowed to vote. So. One more slide. Now we're going to know about you. So, A, are you guys project managers? B, product managers or owners? C, developers? D, testing or QA? Or E, other? The infamous other. Once again, show of hands. A, project managers. Okay, that's good. B, the Giants fan. Okay, so I'm still talking to you, don't worry. C, the developers. Any developers? Well, there's an interesting mix of this crowd. D, testing or QA. Okay. And E, other. E always wins. We have to change the slide now. And also, if you're a tweeter, there's our hashtag. We'd love for you to tweet about the event. And with no further ado, let me give you a little background on Luke Coleman, who's going to do our...
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a Wi-Fi code here or something?
I don't know. I'll find out. Okay? That's a good question. I should know that. I don't. I'm sorry, but we'll find out. So. Let me spend a moment to introduce Luke Homan from Innovation Games, and then we'll get this event started. So some background on Luke. Luke helped form the first Agile conference. He's on board of the Agile Alliance and was instrumental in creating the first roadmap for the Agile Alliance. And the Innovation Games methodology is the only methodology endorsed by the Scrum Alliance, the Agile Alliance, APLN, and PDMA. So it's with great pleasure that I get to introduce Luke Homan from Innovation Games. Luke. I'm just going to fire up your slides and get out of your way.
Yeah, we're going to switch the slides. I know some of you, and has anyone been in my talks before? A couple of people? He's like, okay. So we'll try and make it a little interactive, because I try not to just talk. We'll see what we can do, see if this is interesting. A little bit about me. I've got 4 wonderful kids. I got to update these pictures because they're all older than that now. That's my wife. I play hard at work, and I like to work hard. So I've got a couple books out, and we actually do this for a living. So we play games for a living. And we're going to talk about the kind of games that you could play with your organization, your teams, to identify and prioritize technical debt. So here's my agenda. What's technical debt, and how do I identify it, and how do I prioritize it, how do I get it fixed? Is this something that you're aware of, this term technical debt? Yeah, you're aware of it? Other people do it, not you, of course, and not your teams. It's actually getting a lot of press right now. Israel Gott is writing a lot about technical debt. He's doing some really interesting work. His website is The Agile Executive. So there's a lot of really interesting things that are going on with technical debt. And so, and we have this notion of craftsmanship in Agile. That's part of, especially from the XP tribe or the XP community. There's a lot of notion of craftsmanship and building really good code. So people want to know what this term technical debt is. So borrowing a little bit from my friend Ward Cunningham and my friends over at Sterling Barton, I'm going to define technical debt kind of this way. It's just kind of stuff you don't like. And notice that it's not to me just in your source code. It could be in your architecture, it could be in your data, or your data model, or your build process, or your source code management process, or your project management process. It's all the things that are there that kind of just slow you down. So technical debt. If you think about debt and the term debt, it's this thing that you got to pay. It's this thing that kind of slows you down from achieving your objective, if you will. Or things that just annoy you. And having managed a variety of development teams for a long time, I know that they just kind of want to change something, right? Sometimes it's kind of like your car. You ever had a car longer than 10 years? Am I the only one? Best car I ever bought, Chevy Cavalier. Lasted 10 years. It's an awesome car. I know you're laughing. Look at he's laughing. Thanks. Yeah, in San Francisco, driving around a Cavalier is a laughable thing, I guess. But it was a great car. But after 10 years, you're kind of like, I need a new car. Why? That's 10 years old. Developers sometimes get that way about their architectures and their code. They're kind of like, I've been in this code base for 6, 7, 8 years. This is kind of getting old. It's annoying. So how does cruft happen? And I don't want to imply, and one of the things that concerns me is people talk about technical debt. There's this kind of implicit assumption that if you have debt, it's bad. Bad developers. Technical debt is bad. We never have technical debt. I don't know if that's true, right? Because, it happens, right? And, I know that we're supposed to be refactoring our code to beautiful elegance every single time we're in a sprint, but does your team really do that? Or is there a moment where you get together and huddle as a team and say, okay, we're going to ship in 3 weeks. And I don't really care much about stuff. I care about hitting the date. Or is that just me?
You're not in QA, are you?
QA is, QA is a balance, right? And QA has a voice, but QA doesn't. Shipping is a business decision. QA is part of the. It's easy way because it's an important conversation. I actually like that. QA gets a voice, but they don't get the final judgment, right? Just like every other part of the company gets a voice, but they don't get the final judgment on shipping, because the person who should be in charge of shipping is the product manager for the product. They should be the person who says, yes, there's enough business value here, and I'm willing to take on the risk associated that QA is telling me. Because QA is doing nothing more than providing you a risk assessment. We did these tests, we got these results. Here's what we think. Okay, great, thanks. Right? But, you get a better idea, and I think this is the part of technical debt that is underserved. I used to be a developer, and I very clearly remember those times where I would work on some code, and then a month later, it comes to you like, oh, I could have done it better. Or you read a book, or you learn a new pattern, and your team says, wow, I could have done that better. And the moment that happens, what was just fine becomes technical debt. It's just a matter of perspective. And that's okay, because you want to keep the team growing and improving. And then, of course, we like to use the term architecture in software because it implies buildings and longevity. But I really think of software, and I wrote about this in Beyond Software Architecture, that it's very organic. I think of what we do as more like a garden than a building, because we're always weeding, right? You've got your completely stable system, and then some vendor does an OS patch and something breaks the database, and then the database gets patched, and then your code breaks. You're like, wait a minute, I didn't do that. It's this kind of ripple upgrade effect. So things happen. Security patches, libraries, everything was fine, and then suddenly you realize you're getting cross-scripting attacks or something. And cruft stinks. If you let it build up too much, this is a great picture from Jim Highsmith. If you let cruft build too much, it really does kill your customer responsiveness. Right? It really can actually spend so much time maintenance can kill you. Now, this isn't a new curve. There's a brilliant book. If you have not read it, you should. It's called The Mythical Man Month. And it is absolutely the one book that I tell people that they should read. If you're only going to ever read one book about software, read The Mythical Man Month. If you're only going to ever read one. And Brooks talks about this in the late 60s, about how if systems aren't properly maintained, that they can get into a curve where you're spending more money trying to maintain the bugs, and in fact you can't get it out of the debt because every change you make introduces new errors. And there are systems that have that quality, which is a really terrible quality. So that is really bad technical debt. So I don't want you to think of it as good or bad. I want you to think as a judgment call. I live in the Bay Area, which do y'all live in the Bay Area with me? Okay, so we all live in the Bay Area, which means it's almost impossible to buy a home without a mortgage. Because if you could afford a home in the Bay Area without a mortgage, you may not be in this room. You may be doing something else, right? So is that it's a mortgage. Well, mortgage is debt, but is that bad? Actually, yes. Well, I don't know. I think that having a house has certain advantages. I realize that debt is not necessarily a good thing, but I don't think that all forms of debt are bad. I think from being an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, sometimes I go take on some debt because I want to fuel the growth of my company. So to me, not all forms of financial debt are bad. Therefore, I'm going to apply that principle to our software and say not all forms of technical debt are bad. And you should have some judgment about this. And you should find a way to manage it, properly manage it. So we have a process that we call Collaboratize. And this is a collaborative identification and prioritization of issues or problems or new business opportunities. And we're going to apply that process today to this notion of technical debt. And what we're going to do is we're going to play 2 games with our teams. One of them is called Speedboat, to identify what's holding you back, and one of them is called Buy a Feature. Now, in preparing for this talk, as a keynote speaker, and I give a lot of keynotes, people are always like, don't push your company, don't push your product. I'm like, well, how can I talk about Innovation Games when it's the Innovation Games company? So I'm not going to be pushing our company because the games that I'm going to describe are described on our website, and you can play them for free. You can do all this stuff in person. So hear this as, even though I am an Innovation Games company, you can do this on your own. Let's first talk about what Innovation Games are. Innovation Games are serious games. And what we mean by a serious game, it is a game whose primary purpose is to solve a business problem, not for entertainment. So if you play something like a World of Warcraft, or if you are like my kids and they're playing the Lego games online, which, they love the little Star Wars games at Lego.com, they're just playing it for fun. I play Scrabble for fun with my wife, although sometimes it's not so much fun because she typically beats me. But those are games that we play for fun. The games that we're talking about are games that businesses play to solve business problems, like the identification and prioritization of technical debt. You can play them in person or online. You can play them around the world, etc., etc. So what makes this process unique is that when you're looking at the structure of the game, it's collaborative and it's competitive. It's kind of like playing card games when you have a partner and you're working as a team and you're competing against other people. And there are other forms of games that have this structure. Our games are not just linguistic, so there's pictures involved, there's spatial intelligence, and that taps into other forms of thinking which are shown to give you better results. And then my background, including computer science, is also based on cognitive psychology and organizational behavior. So if you come up to me later, or if you read my book and you say, well, why do these games work? What's going on? I can actually tell you what's happening in the player's brains cognitively or organizationally that motivates a certain form of outcome or a certain form of behavior. So it's not just made up. There's actually deep foundations that drive all this. So the premise is that we can collaborate and innovate better through serious games. And I want to also let you know that there's a wide range of different kinds of serious games. And this is from a Forrester report. There's a very serious game that's designed to educate people on the genocide in Darfur called Darfur is Dying. There's a serious game from Chevron called World Without Oil. And so there are different kinds of games that educate or inform. The most cost-effective recruiting tool ever for the U.S. Army was a game that you could be an Army soldier on a mission, right? The Google Image Labeler, has anyone played the Google Image Labeler? It's based on a game from a university called ESP. You're shown an image, and 2 people are given a timer to describe the image. So let's say the image, the photograph, was a person reading a newspaper on a couch with a dog. Well, what Google really wants you to do is label the image so that they can index and search it. But they don't want to tell you that they want you to label the image. They'd rather make it a game. So you and I are playing the game, and you type in a word and I type in a word, and if the words match, we win. What do we win? We win points. What are the points are redeemable for? Nothing. People just play the game for free. Now, pick a relatively low cost per hour of an employee, like someone you would pay to label images all day long. Pick a low cost, whatever that low cost is. Multiply that number by 50 million, which is the number of hours that Google has documented of people playing that game for them. That's a serious game, if you think about what it's doing for someone like Google. And by the way, the documented number is much higher because that was from a 2009 article in the Communications of the ACM. And it's much higher now. Just imagine, 50 million hours of work for free. That's an interesting number. What would 50 million hours of work do for your company? It's kind of interesting. So when we talk about games, we don't mean silly like Water Park, although they are enjoyable, and we don't mean humorous or fun, although people do have a good time playing them, and that's not so bad either. Right? If your developers are having a good time, they're happier developers. There's a game called Settlers of Catan, which is a game designed you win by acquiring land, but unlike Monopoly, where you can play ruthlessly, in Settlers of Catan, how you play can influence the whole game. So if you play poorly, everyone can lose. So you have to kind of cooperate. It's this very interesting dynamic. It's very different than Monopoly. Monopoly is a very American game. Settlers of Catan is the #1 game in Europe. Big, big, big seller. It's a lot of fun, too. These are the kind of games that we're talking about. These are the kinds of games. You can see people are playing them in person. That picture in particular is a game called Prune the Product Tree. And it helps product managers and product owners develop product roadmaps. And yeah, it's fun. People do have fun. This is an excerpt from a chat log from version 1. They hired us to help them prioritize their backlog using innovation games. And these are 3 different games, 388, 393, 394. And you can see the customers, just saying, did you enjoy this experience? And the customers are saying, yes. My favorite one, I think version 1 are getting great info here. A customer is basically saying, I couldn't believe how much information you extracted from me. And the answer was, because we were playing a game and we weren't doing a traditional survey. Because they were engaged in the act of playing the game, therefore they gave much more information about what they wanted to accomplish. Now, Ian Culling, who some of you may have met at different conferences, he's the CTO of version 1. He talks about customers really enjoying the experience and really capturing a great basis for prioritization. So now the question is, how can I apply these techniques into this notion of technical debt? How can I bring this into my teams? I'm going to skip this and go quickly because we've talked about this enough. First, we're going to talk about identifying truck with Speedboat. Speedboat is a game where we use the metaphor of something that we want to go fast, typically a boat, with something that is holding it back, typically an anchor. Now, if boats don't work for you, you could do race car. I want a race car to go really fast. I've got bumps in the road or nails. You could pick a plane, and the plane could have heavy luggage. It doesn't really matter. But what you want to get to is you want to get to a visual metaphor that lets your team think, I want to go fast, and there are things holding us back. The things that are holding you back are your anchors. Now, in this case, the boat will represent your system, and the developers are creating anchors. Now, those anchors will eventually and likely create the foundation of the technical debt that you want to solve, but it doesn't have to. It could be other stuff. And when I mean other stuff, my favorite anchor of all time from a development team was from one of my own development teams. We played Speedboat, and it was for our development process as opposed to our system. And one of the anchors said Pepsi. Okay, Pepsi. We should probably figure out what the anchor is. So, I'm post-processing the result, and I go to the cards. I bet, could the developer who wrote Pepsi explain this anchor? And someone goes, yeah, we don't have Pepsi. Like, we don't have Pepsi. He goes, yeah, you're like every other one person. You think developers like Diet Coke. I like Pepsi. You want me to develop faster, you'll get Pepsi. Okay, we can cut that anchor. So you want to play games like this because you can't assume that what you think is holding the team back is what they think is holding them back. Right? As a leader or as a manager or a scrum master or whatever, you're going to hear stuff about what's going on. You're going to form your own opinions, but you really want to play this game. Now I want to stress that this game can be played in person. If you have a chalkboard, you could draw a picture of a boat on a chalkboard and use tape on plain old cards. Now, we're Agilists, which means we all secretly have stock in 3M. We have, you'd laugh and you know it's true, right?
I do.
You do, we do. We walk around, we're the only people we're the only geeks in the Bay Area who walk around with computers, iPads, iPhones, tape, markers, and Post-its. Because we can't feel comfortable if we don't have Post-its and we can't stick them somewhere. And you're walking around San Francisco just putting them on cars. Feeling good. Right? So people can write anything on those cards. That's the open-ended exploration aspect of the games. Now, earlier I said that visual thinking matters to people. It does, right? Heavier anchors, worse things are lower, right? And you don't have to be an artist. Right? This is a boat that someone drew. We have images online at innovationgames.com. If you want to go, download one of our boats done by artists, you can. But you don't have to be an artist to pull this off. You just draw. I am not an artist, trust me. And I can draw at least that because it's the metaphor. And these cards have little anchors on them, but you don't have to have little anchors on your cards because people will adopt the metaphor and they understand what it means. Now, many of you are dealing with distributed teams. And so there is, technically, in my world, when you really want to engage a distributed team, you do need tool infrastructure. Right? I mean, if we start with simple tools like email and phone, and then we have chat, and now we have other more sophisticated tools, if you're really working in a distributed team, you want to adopt these agile tools. So let me give you a way. If you were to put this online, you might say, well, I want a picture of a boat, right? And I want to be able to take anchors and drag them in. And maybe I have birds that represent the things that I like. So I can put, impediments or anchors where I want in terms of where the anchor is placed. Now this is like a visual wiki. So if I'm playing the game and you drag an anchor here, someone else can move it over here, and then I can edit it and elaborate on it. And it's through the act of editing and elaboration that developers figure out what the biggest problems are. And they do have to engage in a certain form of prioritization because you don't give them an infinite number of anchors. You give them a limited number. Usually about 15 is about right. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to have a backlog of technical debt of 93 items because you know you're not going to get it done. And that's not very motivational. And you don't want to force them into only 3 choices because that's not enough to pick from. So usually about 15 to 20 is about right. Enough to argue about, not so much that you're going to get bogged down in work that you're just not going to get to. Now, boats are good for generic processes. If you're not sure where to start, or if you want to look at your process and improve technical debt or craft in your process, just go with a generic boat. If you have a picture of your actual architecture, and I just grabbed one from some company, Enigma.com, they have this on their website, right? If you have a picture of your architecture, then throw the picture of your architecture into the system and change the metaphor. Use bombs and smiley faces. Where is our architecture blowing up? Where are we proud of our architecture? Sometimes I go to developers and I say, if you were to open source our system and people that you respected in the development community looked at your code and our system's code, how would you feel? And if they go, maybe that's a problem. If they go, yeah, you could open source our system, I'm pretty proud of it, that's a good sign. Right? So there's little tests that you can, little conversations you can have with your team. So you're playing this game. People are either giving you feedback on cards and you transcribe them, or you put them into anchors either online or as bombs or whatever. And what you're going to do is you're going to get a bunch of results. And what you need to do now is you need to take those results and shape them and manage them. So you have to put them into like mini projects. And I think of these as mini projects, not necessarily backlog items. And the reason why I think they're not yet a backlog item is because they haven't been approved for work. The way I like to run Agile is that the approved work goes through the backlog so that I can account for everything. So, and again, this is just a flavor of how we like to manage our Agile process. And I should let you guys know that we're not speaking to you as like consultants. We are a software team just like you, probably smaller because we're still a bootstrap startup. So we are actual developers. So the way we like to work is we manage everything through the backlog. That's the official record of approved work. So what you've done now is you've got some ideas, you've got some anchors, you've got some areas to improve. You're going to shape them with your team. Make them little projects that are worthy of putting on the backlog. Now you got to prioritize them, right? And the way we're going to do this is we're going to look at the benefits, the impacts, and the costs. And I think it's fair for you as, in whatever role you play, if a developer says, oh, this is a problem and we want to improve it, we'll say, okay, I get it. What's it going to cost? What's the risk if we start down this path? What are the benefits? What do we think the benefits are? And it's okay to me if the benefit is, I'm going to feel happier as a developer because it's kind of like spring cleaning, and I'll cover that later. That's fine with me, right? But I want to know that there is some benefit. Now you're going to prioritize the projects by a feature. So you're going to take these 12 to 20 projects that are described in terms of benefits and costs. You're going to bring developers in groups of 5 to 8, nice Agile teams, and you're going to give them currency to buy the items they want. And here's the trick. You give them 40% of the total. So let's say that the total projects in terms of their virtual cost was $2,000. I'm going to do easy math for me. 40% of that is 800. If I have 8 people, each person gets $100. So if there is a project on that list that costs 250 virtual dollars, and each player has only $100, 3 people must agree that it's worth doing by putting their virtual development dollars in there. Now here's the trick. The currency can be any currency that you think is valuable. So if you're using points, then make the currency points and make the cost points. Doing this will cost, doing this project will cost 58 story points. Okay, great. That's what you think it's going to cost? Great. Here's how many story points I'm willing to allocate to you as the product owner or as the Scrum Master to remove technical debt, this iteration. If you guys map hours, use hours. It's going to take us, you can kind of assume how many hours your developers are working. You can give them that as a budget, and they can apply that budget to the amount of time needed to remove the technical debt. In terms of doing this in person, we like to use Monopoly money. It's cheap and everyone understands it. You can buy replacement packs of Monopoly money for like $3 at Hasbro.com. So we like to use Monopoly money. However, we have some of our clients, people like Intuit or other people, they make their own money. Right? Intuit has Scott Cook bucks. Right? So you can make your own money. You can do some fun stuff. Now again, if you want to do this online, it would look something like this. For a project about internet sunglasses, I want to connect my sunglasses to the internet. I did shirt-sized estimates, right? So I may not be yet at a point where I've got detailed estimates. So I'm just doing shirt-sized estimates. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a random number in the shirt sizes. And because it doesn't have to be super precise. At this level, it's not a price point testing method. It's just a priority testing method. So these are my features. And I throw it into the game. The way the game works is that the players are listed here. The items are listed here, and these are their bids. Now, I switched projects. These are, I'll be right there. These are features for a coffee maker, and these are the chat log. And all of this feeds into what was purchased, why it was purchased, and how it was shaped. So the developers will actually do a better job of project planning by playing the game, because as they're arguing about items, it feeds into the chat log. Go ahead, I had a question?
Yes, so we're collaboratively voting on how much we're willing to invest, but how did we get to the cost? That was not a collaborative, that wasn't like poker cards or something?
No, I do involve your team, but in terms of each project being defined in terms of benefit, costs, and impacts, I have two choices on that, and I can go either way, and I'm okay with it. The first choice is if you have an architect, and you should, I'm okay with the architect looking at the list of projects and just giving a shirt size estimate, because if the architect is any good, the team pretty much isn't going to quibble that it's a medium. Like, usually an architect isn't going to say, oh, that's really trivial and it's really hard, right? Architects tend not to do that. They kind of tend to right size it. Or you can involve your team. Throw it into a wiki. So take the results of your speedboat game, put it into a wiki, and just tell your team, look, I need a little bit of a description, a little bit of an impact, and kind of a high-level agreement on the cost. And tell them that they're going to go through this process so that they know the cost is something that they're going to use as an element of prioritization. Right? And do involve them. When you're done, you can play multiple games. So let's say that you're working in a large team. I'm right now, I have a very small development team, but I have managed very large distributed teams. And so if you have a larger distributed team, you would want to play multiple rounds of the game so that you can get the feedback across the development organization. Now note that you're not going to have 80 people play the same game, because we know from research in organizational behavior that 80 people do not collaborate. Collaboration breaks down dramatically after 8 people. And after 12 people, most organizational behaviors say you can't have a single group, it's going to divide naturally. So what we do in innovation games is we actually limit the number of players to about 8 to 10. And what you want to do is you want to have multiple rounds of games with a distributed team. Now, if you have a small co-located team, then you can do the game on paper and pencil, works great, or you can do it online, either way. And then, of course, we have an integration with version 1, so you can take the results of your speedboat game, put it into version 1, do some shaping in version 1, pump those results into our system, and then take it back into version 1. So if you're using version 1, talk to me or Tammy later, and we'll talk about that. There's many ways to play. If you have a single group of players, 5 to 8, with 12 to 20 items, we call that a party. And we think of it like a dinner party. You're going to set it up, you're going to invite the people, and you're going to play the game. If you have lots and lots of people, you're going to play in groups of 5 or 8 the same game multiple times. And then we also have a combination of, if you have a large list of items to prioritize, and I hope you don't. I hope you don't have technical debt that's so much that you've got like 90 different projects to remove technical debt. But if you do, you can run a tournament. Now, have you ever been in one of those meetings where a product manager or a product owner fires up the Excel spreadsheet and says, we're going to prioritize this list? And it's like, and they've allocated 4 hours with breaks and lunch for the meeting? You're laughing. Does your skin crawl? Because you just can't, you're like, I can't prioritize 50, 60 items. And you get tired, and so then you start just saying yes or no just to get the meeting over with. Or is that just me? No one's admitting. So what we do is instead is we bust that up. The goal is prioritization. Why would you want to prioritize 45 things at once? Cognitively, we really can't do that very well, right? Because we break down in our ability to stay engaged after about an hour and a half. So what we do is we bust it up into smaller tournament structure, kind of like a competitive swim meet, right? When you see how they manage the Olympics, right? They take 8 swimmers and the top 4 advance, or 8 runners and the top 4 advance. So think of it this way: we got these projects. The top 7 are going to advance, and then we play the tournament a couple of times. And then when you're done, you'll have the prioritized list. You can also start with many projects more than this. I wouldn't recommend much more than this, but you can. So how do you get it done? The big projects should get added to your roadmap. And when I mean big, I mean anything that's going to take about a quarter to get done. Like a quarter of work. Now, I don't know if you're doing 2-week iterations or 3-week iterations or 4-week iterations. I kind of don't care. If there's serious architectural change going on in your system, chances are you're not going to get it done in one iteration. That's my experience. So you want to put that big stuff in your roadmap so that it's elevated to the point of the business and marketing and sales and other people know about it. The small items, just throw it into your backlog and just get it done. Now, there's a special thing where you can allocate a certain number of points each sprint. We talked about using that as your prioritization mechanism. Or there's something that I talk about in Beyond Software Architecture that I call an entropy reduction sprint, or an entropy reduction episode. And this is, as you get closer to the ship date, you start to tell the team, and I think this is healthy, I don't think this is bad, it's more important to hit the date than to write beautiful technical debt-free code. Hit the date. And the way you compensate for that is you go to your team, and once they release, you say, come in a little late, leave a little early, take a longer lunch, and take the next sprint and do entropy reduction. Find all of the things that you didn't like the way you did, the corners you cut, whatever you did, and get them out of the code. Reduce the entropy right away. And it's a wonderful way to keep, by the way, it's a wonderful way to just keep your code supple and keep your developers really happy. Go ahead.
So I see two good things about that in addition to getting the product out the door on time. They're going to go back and they're going to deal with that technical debt while it's still fresh in their mind.
Yes, that's correct.
They're excited about it, so they don't have to do this context switching in it. And the other thing is, it's not going to be so complex. It's not going to be mixed with other technical debt. It's going to be easier to extract those problems out without ripping out a whole bunch of other stuff that's been cooked into that.
That's right. So his point, if you didn't hear it, was you get the technical debt out while it's fresh in their mind and before it builds up too much impact. Now, this is kind of in that nice world, and I've done less than nice things, or I've inherited less than nice projects. The record for me was I inherited one team where when I gave them a 3-week opportunity to remove technical debt, they removed 17% of the source code by volume. Isn't that scary when you think about it? I mean, he's like laughing, and he's like, oh my God. So all of these functions that were compiled and never used, and objects, and I mean, it was just amazing. That technical debt had accrued, right? To the point where just removing unused code. Now, I've also inherited some stuff. My record. Do you guys know what McCabe metrics are? You should know what McCabe is, right? And if you don't, see me later. If you don't, you need to know. But I remember one time I was doing some due diligence for one of my clients, and I looked at some source code, and it was a very memorable function. When it's called perform miscellaneous stuff, it's 22 pages long, and it has 14 parameters. It really does, in fact, perform miscellaneous stuff. Anyway, you had another...
Yeah, there was one other thing. And taking out the technical debt after you package this thing allows them to identify... They're doing it when they know the most about the product versus if they're trying to do it as they go along, they learn new things as they go along.
That's right.
So they're doing it with the most information they can.
That's right. And you cannot... Remember what I said earlier. You cannot assume that because a developer says something is technical debt, that there was something that was horrifically wrong about what happened, right? Sometimes they just learn different ways of doing things, right? Or the vendor libraries that they're using, they just learn something about that. Okay, I wanted to play a game, but we can't because we don't have internet. So I'm bummed. So we actually do process improvement games, generic process improvement games. For the prioritization, we actually help people understand the healthcare reform. But if you want to actually experience this with a member of my extended team of facilitators, we play games every Friday. So you just come to our website and sign up and try it out and see if it would be something that would be useful to you. Now, if you want to get started, I know I'm not supposed to do sleazy sales, but come on, look at this graphic. This is my best graphic of my entire clip art library. Is my sleazy sales guy. I love this guy. Huh? A Philadelphia guy. So if you would like to try this out, I mean, you know, we'd love to help you out and get this started. And that's my smiling face. That's how to get a hold of me. I don't know. I forgot to wear my watch because I hate wearing jewelry and stuff. Are we okay, or should we wrap it up? Wrap it up. Okay. One question, if I have one question, and then we'll wrap it up. No? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luke.